we interrupt this program to bring you Courage, the Cowardly Dog Show, starring Courage, the Cowardly Dog!
You're listening to That's Pretty Dark,
the podcast where we talk about all of the entertainment that scared us as children
and still haunts us as adults. So grab your flashlight and join us as we take a frightfully nostalgic look over our shoulders
and under our beds
and in our closets.
And together we'll realize, whoa, that's pretty dark.
Pretty dark.
Am I allowed to speak yet?
Yes. We're recording. Go.
No, I was just apologizing for all the gross coughing sounds I'm going to be making. Because apparently we only decide to record episodes of That's Pretty Dark on days when the weather jumps by like 10 degrees, up or down.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. But
it gets warm for one day and there's pollen everywhere.
It literally took no time at all. My trash can outside is absolutely covered in pollen.
Yeah. My black SUV is totally covered in pollen. It's more of a yellowish green.
And it's all in my insides. I can feel it.
Yeah, it's in my throat.
And I take 2 antihistamines a day right now.
So sick of
I
being
take 2 a
tired,
day. So I just don't know what more I could be doing.
The only thing that may happen with me is I may get hoarse and lose my voice. So it's going to be a really fun time. I won't get horsed. Just.
It's different.
How many times did you think they were saying dead horse?
I think that was meant to be the joke.
I think, yeah.
I also, we'll talk about it, I'm sure, but looking back at Courage as a show, I had a vague memory of Eustace having a brother, but I did not remember his name.
No, I couldn't tell you a single thing.
And meeting Ma Bag, like, we know what kind of person would name her children. Eustace
Horst and Eustace. Did you know what their father's name is?
What's their father's name?
Ickett.
Who said?
Well, the Bag family.
Oh, man. Well, they all had some interesting names.
Yeah, it's very weird.
Speaking of names.
Yeah.
My name is Kaylin.
My name is Christian, and you guys are listening to That's Pretty Dark.
That's Pretty Dark.
Guys, we're getting back into Courage, the Cowardly Dog.
We assume you thought we forgot about it.
How long has it been?
Because we haven't done a Courage episode since September of 2023.
I guess it has been
it's
that
now
long.
February.
Yeah, no, we did Hey Arnold in October. We didn't do Courage, right?
It feels like it's been a long time. It really does.
5 months.
It feels like we have gotten a lot of distance, and I'm ready to get back to nowhere.
Tonight, y'all, we are going to meet 2 sets of very famous anti-villains, anti-heroes of the Courage universe. It's hard to say which one.
It's interesting how they could be called both.
That is. The Duck Brothers and Shirley the Medium. This is Season 1, Episode 6.
We promise it's Episode 6. We know that HBO and everywhere else says something different.
Right.
But it's Episode 6.
And to speak to that confusion further, we have dates all over the place. So the Courage Wiki fandom and the Cartoon Network fandom both say December 10th, 1999. But the IMDb date and the Wikipedia date both say January 14th, 2000. So I think that's correct because although the fandom says December 10th, it also says in the trivia that this is the first episode of the new millennium.
Oh.
So I'm going with January 14th.
But how do we know that's
because they're the ones who said it was December 10th, but they also came back and corrected themselves and said.
Okay, that was a correction. Okay.
That's what I think.
Okay.
And they were just quoting.
I didn't know which came first, the duck or the egg,
When they said December 10th, they were just quoting the Cartoon Network fandom.
Gotcha.
There was a little link to it.
So multiple sources of misinformation, but they have since corrected it. What an honor this is then. The first Courage episode of the new millennium.
The first of the post-apocalyptic landscape that is Y2K.
That is exciting.
I'm glad we're all here together.
It feels very
on the other side.
New millennium Y2K-esque.
This should have been our first episode of this year. Would have been awesome.
Whoops.
And because the summaries are all over the place too, I just did my own.
Well, I'm glad because I prefer yours, generally speaking.
Oh, thank you. 2 alien duck brothers from outer space abduct Muriel and fit her with a mind control helmet, with which they force her to sneak into a military compound to rescue their kidnapped brother. But after thwarting their plans, when Courage learns that they come in peace and mean no harm, except perhaps to each other's feelings, he offers to rescue their brother himself. And both of today's episodes are written by Craig Sheeman and directed by John R. Dilworth.
Dilly.
Craig Sheeman, or Shemin, I'm not sure, wrote a bunch of different things for kids' TV series, including Gullah Gullah Island, The Wobulous World of Dr. Seuss,
Hey.
Clifford the Big Red Dog, Tasty Time with Zafranc, which has Mark Hamill in it,
Okay.
and 7 segments across 6 episodes of Courage the Cowardly Dog.
So this is the only set of episodes that he did
Together, yeah.
together.
Both segments, yeah.
Nice.
It's the middle of the night in nowhere. Courage and the Bags are sleeping peacefully until a bright tractor beam of white light engulfs the house from the dark skies above, leading Courage to wonder if it's already morning.
Is it morning already?
Suddenly, and without warning, Muriel is lifted from the bed, all aglow, and reminiscent of the time she was possessed by the mattress demon.
Yeah, I was going to say full exorcist style. Levitates right up out of the bed.
Poor Courage. He's so scared his eyes pop out across the room like ping pong
Don't blame him.
Still asleep as always, Muriel wafts out through the open window and up into what is quite literally a UFO, an unidentified flying object, because we don't see it. It's out of frame.
It's unidentified.
It's
Not even by
unidentified.
sight. Honestly, I don't mind though, because the stars are so pretty in this moment. Like when we see the farmhouse,
I noticed that too.
the way that the stars are animated and like drawn, I think it's beautiful. Take me up there. That's fine.
Beam me up, Scotty.
Beam me up, Scotty.
Inside of this UFO, Muriel is laying on a table in the middle of a large dark room with a light directly overhead.
Reminiscent of like an operating room.
Yes, very much so. She's surrounded by all manner of dangerously sharp and threatening objects, which, when it comes to triggering medical paraphernalia, this does it for me. This makes me very uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's not fun to look at. Everything is very sharp, very threatening. Lasers, it looks like, scalpels.
Corkscrews.
Yeah, what are they using that for?
Got a couple ideas.
And if they come in peace, why do they need all this stuff?
Serrated edges galore.
Just saying.
Well, who knows what they do on other planets? I don't know. But this is where we meet 2 of the Duck brothers.
Shut up or you'll wake her. No, you will wake her. No, you.
These guys are voiced by Will Ryan, doing an impression of Ringo Starr of the Beatles, who has a pretty traditional Liverpool accent.
Yeah, you can totally tell, even as a kid, like you know that there is some type of impersonation happening, or you know that this is supposed to be somebody that you recognize.
Right. I mean, the voice was so
It's very
spot
clear.
on that people were convinced it actually was Ringo at the time.
Yeah,
Like,
that doesn't
People were
surprise me.
asking John Dilworth in interviews, was it Ringo?
Did you get Ringo on Courage?
If I was him, I'd say,
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, yeah, for sure.
As close as could be.
As close as it comes, yeah. Will Ryan.
Good job, Will. You convinced a lot of people.
He also voiced Digit in American Tail,
Oh my God.
Petrie in The Land Before Time,
Oh my God. Petrie.
the Seahorse in The Little Mermaid, Stewie from Rockadoodle, Hero and Reverend Rat in Thumbelina, Boss in A Troll in Central Park, and Royal in The Pebble and the Penguin,
Man.
which I
a
think is on
lot
our
of
list for
pretty
this
dark.
year.
Yes. A lot of pretty dark titles I'm hearing from Mr. Will
for
Ryan.
sure. Probably all of them.
Every one of those has been discussed.
He did a ton of Disney and Adventures in Odyssey stuff. The bad news here is that he died of pancreatic cancer in 21.
Oh no.
But the good news is he was 82, so he lived a long life and was beloved by many.
Well, no, rest in peace, Mr. Will Ryan, because we appreciate you and your voice. Clearly,
Thanks
it
for your
was
contribution.
a big part of a lot of our childhoods,
Yeah.
even if we didn't realize it. Like so many folks that we end up talking about.
Yeah, and if you look him up, doesn't look like the kind of guy who could do these voices.
Could
but,
do a Liverpool accent very
like,
convincing.
I know a lot of guys who just look like him, like my friend's dads growing up, just real country
like
looking
him?
fellas.
Just a guy
Just a guy looking fella.
with a voice of gold.
And there are 3 Duck brothers in total that we know of. All with the same voice, same aquamarine hue, same antennae on their heads. So their distinctive differences are the accent colors of their eyes, necks, and antenna balls, which are either green, purple, or red, depending on the brother.
Antenna balls. Sorry.
Antenna balls. Oh, and despite being brothers, they also lay eggs.
They do.
Golden eggs. And a running gag in this episode is that the purple brother lays eggs when he's stressed, which always upsets the green brother.
I told you to stop doing that. You'll wake her. Besides, we don't lay eggs. We're Duck brothers. Stop telling me what to do. Help, be quiet and help me with this.
Very judgmental.
Don't tell me what to do.
Yeah.
And I'm going to send you Kaylin, a description of their shared personality from the fandom wiki.
Okay. They are a very argumentative group, clashing on a multitude of arbitrary reasons, especially their tendency to lay eggs. Rather ignorant to common sense, the brothers seem to take a more complicated, assumptive route to accomplish simple tasks, a choice that they will later blame on each other. Despite this, they share brotherly love and are there for each other when needed. At least 2 of them can play guitar. That's funny, they inserted that. In contrast to other antagonists, they made it clear that they weren't evil and didn't want to hurt anyone.
At least 2 of them can play guitar.
I don't know. Like, they say this description says in contrast to other antagonists, but I feel like, at least from what we've covered about Courage so far on our show, I would say the majority of the antagonists are proven to be not evil, but simply, honestly, human at their core. You know, hurting for something, wanting something.
Yeah.
The whole don't judge a book by its cover thing. I mean, that's a lesson that's repeated.
Are they morally skewed? Yeah.
Sure.
But
are they doing it for nefarious reasons? No. Those are some of my favorite characters in general in media. The heart of gold, or at least the eggs of gold, but the questionable assumptive routes to get there.
While this is the first appearance of the Duck Brothers, it's not the last. The Green and Red Brothers come back in Ball of Revenge in Season 4 to sing their ever-famous halftime show duet.
Hence the guitars.
Hence the guitars, exactly.
Got it.
And also, according to the fandom, their names are Donnie, Clyde, and Payne.
I've wondered if they had names. I hoped you would be able to tell us.
I don't know where that came from.
You don't know who's who either, huh?
Everything else just says red, green, and purple. So that's what I'm going to do. I have no idea.
Maybe somebody just along the way on the internet made them up, but
I don't know. Maybe it's referenced in something obscure.
I never heard these guys mention names.
It's not in the episode, but it could be one of the creators talked in an interview or something. And
Maybe.
if you know,
Let us know.
help us out. So what these 2 Duck Brothers do with Muriel is place a mind control helmet on her head. And using a remote control, they can now literally control her every move. And satisfied that they're now able to put their plan into action,
Excellent.
the Duck Brothers return Muriel to her bed by way of the same tractor beam. In other words, these alien Duck Brothers really put the duck in abduction.
Ah, I see what you did there.
You like that?
I thought you were going to do, I don't know why, but as you said those words, I thought you were going to do some kind of play on Duck, Duck, Goose. And I was like,
What?
I started trying to figure it out ahead of time, but I got nothing. So
It's a more complicated assumptive route than should have been
you could say.
to accomplish a simple task.
I wonder if that was really the inspiration behind the whole concept.
I feel like it had to be. I feel like that was part of it.
The puns with fowl and chicken seem to be core to Courage's lore. So that would check out.
Yeah.
What would ducks do? Abduct her? I can see that being conversation.
I like it. I think it makes sense.
Reductive, but effective.
Reductive.
Haha.
Being the first alien abduction scenario that we've covered, it's only fitting to break down a few of the themes and tropes present in this episode. Though I think it's safe to say that Dilly or David or even Craig Sheeman himself could have been inspired by any number of films or shows or reports about alien abduction. Because there are certain details in the majority of real-life abduction experiences that have become somewhat ubiquitous around the world and across all media and entertainment.
And as Courage often does, it kind of distills those into a kid's cartoon.
Yes, correct. And it takes a bunch of different things and sort of just crushes it all into a single diamond. To reference a book by Michael Barkin called A Culture of Conspiracy, there are 3 fringe phenomena / conspiracy theories that often go hand in hand: UFOs, alien abduction, and mind control plots.
Yeah.
They're not mutually inclusive, but in this episode, all 3 happen.
Honestly, it seems like that helmet could have some much greater medical uses. I'm just saying, like if we could just harness that.
Oh, absolutely.
If only it worked like that. My grandfather was a stroke patient, and for 14 years, I think, upwards of 10, he couldn't walk or talk. And I'm just imagining what, how different his life and the lives of those caring for him could have been if we could have just put a helmet on his head.
Yeah, a helmet that bypasses your own nervous functioning and the brain disconnect between your
just
what it's
bypasses
supposed
all that
to tell
and
your
uses
body.
its own channels to do what it
you're
needs
right.
to do.
That'd be great. The only problem is you lose
Again, this
all
is
over.
assumptive.
you lose all other sense of like autonomy and self and like your identity.
Sure,
like
yeah,
totally
you lose
wiped.
all that, but a lot of stroke
But
patients
hey.
are missing, some of that anyway, more than they
That's
should
true.
be, so it could give back some semblance of that.
But hey, maybe you could just walk around and build up leg strength, muscle memory.
Yeah, it could. Maybe it's a rehabilitative
Physical rehab.
a rehab sort of device. Who knows?
We have so many good ideas.
Yeah, if only it actually existed.
Speaking
For
of
us to
get rich
harness it.
quick schemes,
I
geez.
just hit my funny bone on the edge of this desk. I can't breathe.
It wasn't funny, was it?
I mean, it went right in there. Oh, it feels like my arm is never going to work right again.
That's what she said.
Ow. Here's what she said.
If you have any interest in the history of high strangeness surrounding aliens, you know that reports of UFO sightings and close encounters with aliens go back hundreds, if not thousands of years. And if that's news to you, just go watch a couple episodes of Ancient Aliens and you'll get the idea.
Mm-hmm.
But two of the more famous accounts in recent American history occurred during the 1940s, with the Trinity UFO case in 1945 and the Roswell incident in 1947.
I wondered if Roswell would come up.
Of course, I named my dog Roswell when I was in 5th grade. Yet, those are just sightings and encounters. The first recorded abduction experience was the story of Betty and Barney Hill in 1961. Now, if you're already rolling your eyes, then please be advised that the Hills account was just one of dozens investigated by the United States Air Force under the codename Project Blue Book from 1952 to 1969. Project Blue Book was preceded by two other organized efforts by the federal government to scientifically analyze UFO phenomena. The first was Project Sign, started in 1947, followed closely by Project Grudge in 1949, although some aspects of Project Grudge did continue until the end of 1999.
Wow.
Coincidence?
I think not.
Who's to say? As writer and skeptic Peter Rogerson puts it, the Betty and Barney Hill incident was among, quoting, the first canonical abduction cases, establishing a template that later abductees and researchers would refine, but rarely deviate from. In other words, it was so sensational and popular that it essentially defined the alien abduction narrative and became the model for how such experiences were not only reported by those claiming to have been abducted, but also how these accounts were depicted in fiction. Close Encounters of the Third Kind, X-Files.
Yes.
There was even a movie based on the Hill story called The UFO Incident, starring James Earl Jones.
Oh man, I haven't seen it. Sounds like we should.
This movie was based on the book that the Hill's psychiatrist worked on with author John Fuller called The Interrupted Journey. So many layers here. They told a psychiatrist, he told a writer, they wrote a book, and then they made a movie, and other articles were published, and boom, boom, boom.
Because at the core of it, the idea of UFOs, the idea of intelligent life elsewhere in the universe has always fascinated us here on Earth. Always.
Always.
It's always been a question. You can't look up at a starry sky like that beautiful one that we see,
And not
early in
wonder
this
what's out there.
episode and not wonder, Can't do it.
And again, there had been sightings of things for a very long time. All this stuff built on itself over, the generations and the decades. And this in particular was wrapped up in a lot of like racial tension because they were an interracial couple and it was illegal in most states to
Which is insane.
have an interracial marriage.
It's so insane that is so true in such recent history.
This is the late 50s, early 60s, so a lot of civil rights stuff going on. It was just a very
Messy, complicated.
difficult time. And that was kind of why the psychiatrist set out to do this work because he wanted to put the alien abduction scenario to rest and explain it more psychologically. And that's why he wrote the book in the first place.
We all have
Not that
our
it
motives.
certainly wasn't a money grab, I'll tell you that much. It certainly wasn't to
we all
make money.
all have our reasons why we do stuff.
So here's a little how that interrupted journey went. The Hills were driving home late one night from a belated honeymoon trip to Niagara Falls in Ontario when they noticed a light in the sky that appeared to be following them. It got closer and closer, and this is when they could see that it was, in fact, a flying saucer hovering above their vehicle, filling it with beeping sounds and flooding it with light. They felt drowsy and fell asleep, and when they woke up, they'd lost 2 hours and were 35 miles further down the road with no recollection as to what had happened. So much more happens, but that's the premise.
Well, I've heard it before, so I have to assume that many of our listeners have probably heard other accounts of this incident.
So these two had a great deal of post-trauma, if you can believe it. Physical, emotional, psychological, all of it. The main thing is Betty had debilitating nightmares and Barney had terrible stomach ulcers from anxiety. So they sought help in the form of hypnosis, performed by a psychiatrist and neurologist named Benjamin Simon. The goal here was to recover their memory of what had happened during those 2 hours to bring them closure. But the story they told is harrowing. The Hills described being laying on these metal tables, surrounded by all these, you guessed it, sharp objects.
Bingo.
Plus tubes, needles, wires.
It's so interesting, like the intersection of this anxiety about the other, anxiety of being abducted and taken somewhere where you are not in control. But a lot of that is tied in with medical anxiety.
For sure.
A lot of these accounts have so much of that imagery in them. And it makes a lot of sense to me, being like a chronically ill person, you know, because that
the stark white room, the bright lights.
Stuff sticks with you. And we often, you know, do have a lot of repressed memories around experiences like that. So it's interesting to me to see the layers and the merging of those ideas, wherever they happen to be taking place in reality.
I had hernia surgery when I was a kid and I woke up mid-surgery. And I remember just, you know, blurry, bright lights and people and like, if I didn't know what was going on, I might have described it as an alien abduction.
Right.
There's a large, bright light hanging just overhead. Their clothes were removed and the aliens collected samples of their hair, nail clippings, and scrapings of their skin. The needles, which were connected to these long wires, were inserted into their every orifice, their arms, legs, and even their spines. Maybe collecting spinal fluid samples, I have no idea.
That's like a whole procedure, honestly.
Betty said one needle about 4 to 6 inches long was inserted into her stomach to check to see if she was pregnant.
The aliens haven't developed better technology for that? They're supposed to be more advanced than we are.
I'm not an alien scientist.
Me neither. Although it feels like the last 6 months of my life has felt an awful lot like this. I've got to tell you.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Every orifice.
But I will say, I didn't go too much into this, but like when you look into like shared psychosis and group hallucinations and like folie à deux and things like that, these things do happen. Like even if this was just a hallucination shared by two people, this has happened before. And that kind of thing really just speaks to the more esoteric elements of human nature, things that we just don't understand. So who knows?
We go into that subject quite a lot because there is so much of it.
The main takeaway from the Hills story is the laboratory-esque examination room, where everyone ends up on this table for the purpose of being subjected to some intense and egregious violation. So it's pretty dark to see this scenario depicted in a kid's cartoon. Although the expectation is, of course, subverted when they don't use any of those sharp objects and simply fit a metal helmet to her head.
Screw it on like a...
They kind of screw it on, like a mason jar.
Yeah, like a mason,
like they're
like a
preserving her.
Yeah.
But there's one last thing. I can't get away from all the alien talk without addressing tractor beams. No, they have nothing to do with tractors.
We've all seen the cows.
Yes, I was going to say, usually they're cows, which, you know, is no doubt a reference to the ever mysterious cattle mutilations that they attribute to aliens, another highly strange phenomenon that's still unexplained to this day. But tractor beams. The term was first coined by science fiction author E.E. Smith, first calling it an attractor beam, and later updating it in his 1931 novel, Space Hounds of IPC. Woof, woof.
Ow.
According to Wikipedia, the tractor beam is a device that can attract one object to another from a distance. But I will add that it's usually depicted as a beam of light emitting down from an alien spacecraft of some kind.
Beam me up, Scotty.
And when an object is lowered using the same sort of beam, it's actually called a repulsor beam or a pressor beam.
Makes sense.
And the reason that legitimately matters is because there have been consolidated efforts to create a bona fide tractor beam since at least the 1990s.
It doesn't sound so far-fetched.
No, it doesn't.
It really doesn't, if I'm being honest. Of all the crazy things and all the wild things that you could come up with in an imagination, I mean, the helmet, pretty far-fetched. But a tractor beam, It feels like that's almost within our realm of possibility.
I want the helmet. I want the tractor beam. I want them to bring a pig brain back to life. But I tried to read into it, and it's really hard to understand because there's all sorts of jargon.
It's physics.
Yeah, well, it's fringe physics.
Yeah.
Stuff like force fields, collimated beams, condensed matter,
We've all seen Stranger
cosmological
Things.
constants, gravitational shielding,
We've all seen Fringe.
cryostats,
For that matter.
gravitons, photophoresis, quantum theory,
Didn't we talk about
photonic nanosoldering.
Didn't we talk about photophoresis?
I'm sure we have.
We've
I have
gone into
no
some
idea.
of these topics. Some
I
of
don't
these
know,
fringe
maybe.
physics topics.
I've seen Fringe.
I love Fringe. Joshua Jackson.
It's a good show. To segue back in, one of the things that merges aliens with government conspiracy is not only how dismissive these various government projects were regarding UFO sightings, calling them balloons, solar reflections, mass hysteria, etc., and not to mention the debunking mandates they had, but also that vast majority of UFO sightings have occurred on and around military bases and compounds, which is exactly where the Duck brothers send Muriel on her mind-controlled mission. Well, all this time, Courage is failing to convince Eustace that anything is wrong by taking him outside to show him that there was something but now nothing there.
Something that
In the
happens
sky.
in almost every episode.
Correct.
Stupid dog. But it was up there.
Although it does feel like a very early Courage episode to me. This one does. The colors feel different. Courage feels more purple, and the paradigm of them kind of all working as a team, or Courage taking Eustace outside to show him that nothing's there.
Yeah.
These are things that happen throughout the series, but it was something that they built on very, very early. So I don't know if this would have been an earlier episode than it ended up airing, but it kind of felt like that to me.
Yeah, maybe. I have another reason why I think that maybe, but I'll get to it in a bit.
Okay.
And naturally, when they return to the bedroom, Muriel is back in bed, still asleep,
The aliens tucked her in so nicely.
but with a glowing green helmet fastened to her noggin. She gets up and, like a robot, clambers her way to the Baggs farm truck and drives away, Courage in tow. And they arrive at a military compound in nowhere. Who is military? Who knows? It's not a very good one.
Who goes there? Oh, it's a sweet old lady.
Yeah, I mean, they will just let anybody in if you're a sweet old lady. If you look like a sweet old lady or you look like a dog,
Looking like a dog.
you're good to go.
But this is where we learn the true motive behind this mind-controlled plot. To use the most unsuspecting and least threatening character in all Nowhere to simply be allowed to enter the local military compound to rescue their third brother from being cooked and eaten for dinner. And while Muriel mechanically navigates the compound hallways and discovers the kitchen where the third brother's being kept, Courage discovers the Duck brothers hiding under the truck, thanks to those pesky golden eggs. They play keep away with the remote control, they bombard him with the golden eggs, and fun fact here, the colors are swapped on the brothers. Usually it's the green brother giving the purple brother a hard time, but here we see the green brother defending the eggs.
Whoops.
He's throwing them and saying,
So who's complaining now? Huh?
Oh.
little continuity error. So a lot happens all at once. Courage gains the upper hand and wields the remote control, although he doesn't know how to use it.
We've all been there.
The number of times I didn't know how to use it, you know what I mean? The Duck brothers seemingly run away, but they soon return with a newly mind-controlled Eustace. And this brings us to the Rock'em Sock'em Robot sequence,
Yep.
where Muriel and Eustace fight exactly like Rock'em Sock'em Robot, controlled by Courage in one corner and the Duck brothers in the other. So there are a few fun things to talk about here, including the history of this classic game.
Have to talk about it.
Got to.
It's so recognizable.
Immediately, you're like, oh shit, Rock'em Sock'em
That's
Robot.
supposed to be Rock'em Sock'em Robot.
That's supposed to be. You know what? That dang there, Rock'em Sock'em dang it.
They're dang Rock'em Sock'ems if I'm not a Rock'em Sock'em.
Rocking them ding dangles and socking them doom doggles.
Sorry, guys.
Apologies. Been a while.
It's been a while since we got to do a Courage episode, okay?
To start with, the Green Brother says,
We have not yet begun to fight.
We've not yet begun to fight.
no, it's Scottish. This is Liverpool.
I know, I always go Scottish. I'm trying, okay?
We have not yet begun to fight. I can't do it.
Better than mine.
Which is a quote by Scottish-American revolutionary John Paul Jones.
See? It's supposed to be Scottish.
Yes, it is. Eyewitness to History.com says, this was the immortal retort of Captain John Paul Jones to a request to surrender as he and his crew engaged in a desperate battle with a British frigate off the northern coast of England during the American Revolution. Frigate. And this quote is used again, more famously, in another episode of Courage in Season 2.
Whoa.
Written by our pal David, Mission to the Sun.
This was a favorite among them.
It was. Maybe he wrote it into this episode too as the head writer. Who knows?
He very well might have.
The coincidental thing here is that the phrase is uttered by Mustafa al-Bacterius, a space worm that inhabits Muriel's brain and takes control of it, making her do an assortment of wild and crazy things. So, this phrase is used in 2 episodes.
But the same, essentially, plot point.
Where Muriel is mind-controlled specifically by some kind of alien character from outer space.
That sounds intentional to me.
It does.
Or my name's Courage.
And it's not. And once the robotic fight between Muriel and Eustace breaks out, we can hear John Dilworth himself vocalizing over the music, saying things like, "Oh mama, you know what I want. Oh yeah, come on baby, swing it.
Yeah.
Shake it, baby."
I could hear that. You're right. That is something I could hear.
That is something. All right. But the telltale sign that this fight is a reference to old Rock'em Sock'em is perhaps the most disturbing. When Muriel socks Eustace on his chin and his head shoots up from his shoulders, elongating his neck by a good 10 feet at least.
I never had Rock'em Sock'em robots. I think in part because that eked me out so much.
Mm-hmm.
Just the idea that
the neck goes.
Your head could not even pop off, but just extend.
Yeah, because it's an extension of your spinal.
We all
column,
know I have issues with
like
my neck already. Sometimes it feels like my neck is doing that.
Seems like it would feel good to stretch that out some, though.
I don't know. I'm just imagining it being stiff. That's what she said.
Oh, yeah. Well, for that, you get to read another quote.
Okay. That's fair penance.
Read it.
To quote Wikipedia, Rock'em Sock'em Robots is a 2-player action toy and game designed by Marvin Glass and Associates and was first manufactured by the Marx Toy Company in 1964. It features 2 dueling robot boxers, Red Rocker and Blue Bomber, mechanically manipulated by the players, and the game is won when one player knocks the opposing robot's head up and off the shoulders.
It wasn't the first game of its kind, of course. As early as 1948, there was a coin-operated arcade machine by the International Mutoscope Corporation called Silver Gloves, where 2 tiny boxing figures would be operated by 2 players.
Mm-hmm.
You ever seen this in an arcade?
Yes, I have. As you're saying it, I'm visualizing it.
I've seen it before, too.
But, I mean, fighting games in arcades and at home, honestly.
Yeah.
This is a continuing thing.
Yeah.
Through the course of history.
More advanced boxing games appeared in arcades in the early 1960s, and these were humanoid mannequins made of metal that, to quote Wikipedia again, would fall over if a player managed to hit the button on the chin. And I've also seen one of these in at least one arcade before, and it's straight out of the Uncanny Valley because they're these 2 little like boxer, they look like little men, little guys.
Yeah, they're little dudes.
Little dudes. It's creepy. But here's the distinction. These were arcade games. Marvin Glass designed toys. Operation, Mousetrap, Simon, Lightbright. So he wanted to mass produce the same concept for retail purchase by the average consumer. Nevertheless, when famous boxer Davy Moore died in 1963 after sustaining very serious injuries in the ring with Sugar Ramos, Marvin Glass decided to pull the project altogether.
Wow.
But someone named Bert Meyer, perhaps one of the associates, suggested they simply dehumanize the characters in the game, make them robots instead.
Solves all the problems.
Not just robots, but alien robots. The rollicking Red Rocker is from Saltaris 2, and the beautiful Blue Bomber is the pride of Umgluck.
Wouldn't have known that.
Who knew? It was released in 1964, and get this, wasn't updated until 1977 after the release of Star Wars, giving the game a more overt outer space theme. Star Wars changed everything.
I mean, everything.
This update was called Clash of the Cosmic Robots and looked totally different from the original, And there have been a ton of variations over the years, including a Transformers-themed one with Optimus Prime and Megatron.
I remember that.
Me too, I've played that one.
I remember that.
And there's apparently a Warner Brothers movie in the works starring Vin Diesel.
Whoa.
Unless they, kill the whole thing and collect the insurance money. And I also connected a few more dots during this robotic fighting sequence. And this may speak to it being possibly an earlier episode. When the Duck brothers win a round of the boxing match by making Eustace punch Muriel in the gut, Courage pulls a classic gag by insisting that they have a fair fight. He proceeds to set rules by showing them all the low blows and cheap shots they aren't allowed to deal during the fight, showing them by example and dealing said blows.
Yeah, it feels very Three Stooges.
Exactly. Yes. No eye poking, shin kicking, or head bonking. And to show that they've got it, they do the same things back to Courage. So like you're saying, not only do these sound effects of comedic violence greatly resemble those used in the Three Stooges, this scene is pulled directly from the 1943 Looney Tunes short To Duck or Not to Duck, starring Daffy Duck. More ducks.
That's supposed to be a nod. That's intentional.
Oh, for sure. And I remember this Looney Tunes short very well, all but one thing. Elmer Fudd shoots Daffy out of the sky, so Daffy challenges him to a fair fight in a boxing ring, which of course is anything but a fair fight. Daffy wins by pulling the same gag with the help of the duck referee. First, the ref does it to Elmer, and then Daffy, to show, do I have it right, does the same thing to Elmer again. And then at the very end, Elmer does it back to both the ref and Daffy. And it's all rather violent and a lot of great fun. But here's the part I didn't remember. In this episode alone, Elmer has a hunting dog. The dog's name is Larimore. Side note, he's voiced by Mel Blanc and sounds very similar to Marvin the Martian. Larimore is up in the nosebleeds watching the unfairness of the fight. And then he turns and says to us kids, there's something awfully screwy about this fight, or my name isn't Larimore.
Hey.
And it isn't.
Whoa. He says, and it isn't?
So it's not his name, but they all call him Larimore. So apparently Larimore has a very rich backstory that I think we all need to know about.
Wow.
Yeah. So possibly, potentially, maybe, I have no idea. This could be where they got the idea for Courage to do this in almost every episode.
You said to duck or not to duck?
To duck or not to duck.
It's got to be in the annals of the David Stephen Cohen library.
Has to be.
Has to be.
I want to know where this came from. We should ask David next time we talk to him.
Yeah, definitely.
I need to know. I want answers, damn it. I want answers.
I think that our answer is right in front of us. I think that this was used as inspiration.
Yeah.
And it brought...
in a lot of ways.
Exactly like what we've talked about with David a couple times. It brought those caricatures, those ideas, that type of humor to us, kids born in a whole different generation.
And this is why I was texting you the other night about, what did you actually find about this? Because I don't remember. I found a TV Tropes page and I was trying to get you to tell me.
I did not go there.
Without giving too much away.
Yeah. We all struggle, listener. You may not even hear this. Editing Christian's probably going to chop it.
Probably.
We ourselves treat these episodes, like some stuff sticks. But in general, when I write a script, all the detail is gone from my head as soon as I've said it to you.
If I write anything, it's gone.
Yeah.
Because I regurgitated it. It's on paper now.
It's on paper. It exists. You know what I mean?
It exists. I can forget about it.
Something that exists, so I don't have to hold on to it anymore, which is not a great way to go about things, but it's just what my mind does.
You ever go back and read your old...
the same thing in school.
You ever go back and read your old college essays?
Oh, yeah.
That you wrote papers?
Yeah.
That you got A+ on? You're like, holy shit, that's pretty good. I don't remember a single
hey, who was she?
Who is this voice? What voice is this? Anyway, love the whole Larimore thing. I think that's genius.
That's great.
And I really wish the first time Courage had ever said this, he would have said, where my name is Larimore.
My name's Larimore.
And it isn't.
Maybe he will one day. Let's keep that. Listener, you help us. Let's keep an eye out for it. I'm sure if it happens, we will all collectively freak out together.
Back in the Courage universe, the Rock'em Sock'em sequence ends when the mind control helmets are both damaged in the fight. Hopeless now, the Duck brothers bully each other to tears. They never meant to hurt anyone. They just needed help rescuing their captured brother, who will now inevitably be cooked for dinner.
They cry neon tears too, if you notice.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Their tears are neon.
I'd feel bad for them too.
Radioactive, it looks to be.
Radioactive. Steer clear.
My tears feel radioactive.
What is it? The They like mercury or like what's the stuff? The radium girls.
The Radium Girls.
The Radium Tears.
Oh, Radium Tears.
Radium Tears, another song by Diphtheria.
Yes, that is Diphtheria's new lead single.
But these radium tears, melt Courage's heart, leading him to offer his assistance. But instead of just going in and rescuing the brother, he dons a third mind control helmet to be remote controlled. And I think we kind of agree here that, look at that Buzz. Sweet boy.
He's the best.
I think we kind of agree here that the helmet gives the wearer certain abilities or powers, certain skills.
Yes.
Because my question
they may
was,
not otherwise have. Mhm.
yeah, could he not just walk in by himself? I say perhaps not. This implies that the helmet gives the wearer the skills necessary for such a mission. Any mission, really. Combat skills, emotional detachment, discernment, walking on the ceiling, whatever. Breaking the laws of physics.
Yes.
This all still feels closely tied to that culture of conspiracy thought that we touched on earlier. Not just mind control in general, but specific real-life things like the MK Ultra brainwashing, the sleeper agents of the KGB and the SVR.
That you can be made to do something that is not even you.
That you don't even think you're capable of. Right. It's tucked away. It's hidden deep inside of you. Some programming deep inside.
Yeah, accessing something that we have that we are unaware of.
The Bourne Identity is this in a nutshell.
Yeah.
And speaking of movies, The Manchurian Candidate, this all goes into everything from the mid-20th century that inspired the theories behind the Manchurian Candidate concept that became the book that became the movie. So it's all very, very interesting.
Everything cannibalizes everything else when it comes to art and pop culture, listener. And that's pretty dark.
3 cheers for cannibalism.
Exclusive discovery. We're the only ones that have ever said it.
Can't get enough of that cannibalism. Inside the facility, Courage comes across 3 additional captured alien species. The government is hiding aliens from us. There's no doubt about it.
I mean, they've
Can't
shown it
change
to
my
us
mind.
at this point.
They're showing it to us, right? Alien species 323
323.
has the traditional look of the Greys, first described by Betty and Barney Hill. Only in this case, it would be the purples.
Very Invader Zim-esque.
Ooh, Invader Zim. Yeah, he has that same look too.
Mm-hmm.
Alien species 559 has a more reptilian look, and this guy will appear again in multiple later episodes as the space dino.
Yeah, he seems like a dragon-ish thing. Dino is a good description.
Alien species 982 also looks like a dino, but mostly just a dino head. And it's a good thing the cook has taken his sweet time sharpening his knife, like this whole evening.
Several hours.
Several hours, it appears. Because the Red Duck brother is still there waiting to be captured by Courage.
Hey, bringing the duck back. What am I going to serve? Strudel. Oh, good.
We recognize that this is some type of military outpost with some kind of Area 51 sort of a mission.
Vibe, yeah.
A vibe. They want to collect extraterrestrials. Like, that just seems to be what's happening here.
It seems to be the case.
So why then?
Will they be eating one for dinner?
Yes, that's what my question is. Why then, when they find the duck brother, who has antenna, by the way, he's not a duck. He's not a duck. He can talk also, but who knows if the military folk know that.
Yeah, I want to see the backstory of how he got there.
My question is, how did he get there? And why, of all aliens, do they decide to eat?
I don't know.
He's in the kitchen, which I'm sure it's just for the humor's sake. And it's more of like a Looney Tunes vibe. Of course, you're going to kill and eat the duck, yes. Like, it definitely is done for the Looney Tunes slant.
Yeah.
And it is funny. When you hold it up all together, that's pretty funny.
And it's that common
as I
thing in
rewatched
cartoons.
It, I was like, but why? Why not put him in the gel and the stuff? Keep him.
Yeah, it's that common thing in cartoons of like anthropomorphized animals about to be cooked for dinner.
Yes.
What the crab from Little Mermaid.
Yeah.
The whole chef sequence.
It's in everything.
The intelligent, species.
Because that's the joke. I mean, we watch all these movies and shows with anthropomorphized animals, and that's the joke. Is why wouldn't we kill and eat him too? We eat all the rest of them, and
inverting the whole thing. But like,
I just thought it was funny that he went straight to the kitchen. That one's for dinner.
I think it's like, if it looks like a duck and it talks like a duck, then it is
that's a better joke.
A duck. Yeah. Okay. I can't say quacks like a duck.
Quacks like a
If
duck.
it lays eggs like a duck. Okay. If it walks like a duck and it lays eggs like a duck.
There you go.
It must be a duck.
There you go.
And speaking of ducks that walk like ducks and lay eggs like ducks, These brothers are reunited and overcome with emotion, and each of the 3 brothers lay a golden egg.
I'm so happy I could just... All right, can we just stop doing that?
Their tractor beamed up into their own unidentified spacecraft, arguing about whether they should or should not lay eggs as brothers.
Mm-hmm.
And as the red brother says,
I don't think it's right for you to judge us.
There you go.
this is another example of how brilliant and ahead of its time this show is for challenging gender norms.
Mm-hmm.
Not only is the boy dog pink, but these duck brothers lay eggs.
Mm-hmm.
And the arguments aren't about whether or not they can,
No.
but whether or not they should.
That should not be the argument. Exactly. The argument, yes, is not a can, but a should. And that's maybe what makes it progressive.
Exactly. As the green brother says over and over, I don't think it's right. And as the purple brother says, stop telling me what to do.
Mm-hmm.
Self-loathing.
Stop telling
judgment.
me what to do.
Kids, being different doesn't make you wrong.
No.
So that's my 2 cents
And
here.
if courage tries to tell us one thing, it's that.
Yeah.
I was pleasantly surprised. Like, with a show like Courage, because the whole thing is sort of like, what crazy circus sideshow thing can we have happen? I feel like it's even more delicate because you don't want to treat differences like a circus sideshow.
Right.
However,
Right.
I think in multiple instances, I can't give them all the credit in the world, but in multiple instances, they do ask the questions. They do create the space outside of the box. You know what I mean? They don't expect to stuff every thought and feeling that you ever have into the boxes that a lot of media would have us do. Courage always kind of steps outside of that, sidesteps it, ignores it entirely sometimes.
Yeah.
To allow kids to make their own judgments and reach their own conclusions. And so I appreciate that gender is yet another subject that they take and say, it's up to you.
I like it. It's just good stuff.
He lays eggs when he's emotional. And these are alien species. So
It's also like, don't shame somebody for how they respond when they're emotional.
emotionally, yeah.
Boys cry. You know what? Maybe
Boys
it's like,
cry sometimes.
it's a metaphor for
even
crying,
if they
perhaps.
are neon radioactive tears. I think also a really important point is when Courage understands them, right? When he figures out all you're trying to do is save your brother. Well, that's relatable. That's understandable. Any species.
Right. Yeah, he's
any
like, why
type
didn't you
of
just
life
ask
form
for help?
has that type of understanding of that loyalty. Exactly. He says, why didn't you just ask for help? And I love that can be a revelation of, oh, that's a thing I can do.
Yeah, that's a good
I can
point.
ask for help. I can just ask for help, you know? Because Courage is implying, why didn't you just ask for help? As in, I would have helped you.
That's true. And he would. I believe him.
I believe that he would as well. And even putting it up next to this fight that they've been in, you know, like you said, they've been at odds this whole time, Courage with these Duck brothers. They never had to be in conflict.
Right.
Because the only thing that they were conflicted over was the misunderstanding.
Mhm.
And they were both just trying to defend themselves, when in reality, they didn't know that Courage was safe enough to come to ask for help.
Yeah.
And if they had known that, they would have never argued and fought at all, arguably. The issue is that Courage is like, you can't take my people.
You can't hurt my loved ones to save your loved one.
You can't do that. But if you had asked, I might have let you have Eustace. You know what I mean?
well,
Like, if you
Eustace,
needed help.
he's fair game. He's talking about a fair match, just fair fight.
Fair trade, honestly.
Throw him into
Like,
the ring.
If you needed help, you know, I would be willing to go to bat for you and to do that for you, or to provide assistance in whatever way I can.
Mhm.
So don't take what you need. How about try to collaborate and ask and work
Don't take
together,
by
and don't be
force.
afraid to do that. Exactly. Don't take it by force.
Mhm.
So I think that's a good message.
You gotta
too.
go through the
It can be
proper
applied on a
channels.
micro scale or a macro scale. Just ask for the things that you need, and you might be surprised you know, what you receive.
If you don't get yourself to a very desperate place where you just become nothing but reactive to everything. Maybe you could have just solved the issue in peace, coming in peace, you know?
I also do really like how they are the Duck brothers, so they have these moments of sibling rivalry and like the sibling squabble and just siblings judging each other, and you know, that is very relatable as a young child watching.
Right.
Because all siblings kind of act the same at their core.
Yeah. You love each other, but you fight too at the same
You
time.
love each other, but you're gonna say things that the other sibling doesn't agree with. The other sibling's gonna get upset about that. Like that dynamic is obviously very relatable for young kids. So I think, and it's funny. It comes off as funny when you're like, that could be me and my brother. You know what I mean?
It could be anybody.
Yeah.
And of course, yeah, when the red brother shows up and then he's part of the argument too.
Yes.
Like,
Because
they're all
that's what they
arguing.
do. That's what they do. They don't have any other way of communicating.
Yeah.
Which I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm just saying it's real.
It's very real.
Stop talking about my eggs.
And this episode closes with Courage using the mind control helmet on Eustace to bring him and Muriel breakfast in bed.
Again, another great application.
Oddly enough, eggs.
Why didn't they just keep it? I guess the Duck brothers had to take it back, but you would think
I'm
that
sure they came back.
owed him one at this point.
So I have some final thoughts, but first I think we should do the Scareometer.
Wow. It has been a long time.
I know, I almost forgot to do it.
Do-do-do-do-do-do.
So what did you give it?
Well, I'm not saying this is right, wrong, or indifferent, but UFOs have never been a huge figure in my life in terms of what I'm afraid of, because I have a lot of things right here on Earth.
Never been scared of aliens before?
Not really.
Wow. I have.
Not especially.
I still am.
It is scary to think that there could be life out there, but it's also not scary. It's also kind of comforting.
Well, I'm not scared of the whole life out there. I'm scared of the whole psychic nature of aliens and how all they have to do is just select you from their 1,000,000 light years away
Yeah.
and just up your whole life.
I guess so.
Essentially.
I just have never felt threatened by aliens in particular, so I'm fascinated.
I understand it. Okay, that's fair.
I'm fascinated, but I'm not threatened. So
That's fair. That's fair.
Scare-wise, I only gave it a 2 out of
Okay,
10.
that's all right.
Because to me, it's not scary. It's just interesting.
No, it's not. It's not a scary episode. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there are plenty of people. I'm not knocking you if you are afraid of UFOs, and you probably have every reason to be. I've just internalized different struggles.
No, sure,
So-
sure.
What about you? What's your
Well, I had an experience recently, and
an alien encounter?
well, first of all, I've seen multiple UFOs in the sky.
Mm,
I sent you a video of one.
You did, yeah. I've seen
Um,
some as well.
I don't know if it convinced you as much, but it was also a grainy phone video at night outside of Rouse's.
No,
But
I mean, I believe there was something there, and I don't know what it was. Therefore, it's a UFO.
it was really weird. But I've seen multiple things that freak me out. And just recently, I was on this strip where there's not a lot going on, but there are these very tall streetlights. And it was at dusk, so not quite dark enough for the lights to turn on yet. And as I was driving, I saw around my vehicle this, like it turned on, a glow of light on the road around me, like the street lights were on. And I was looking out my windshield. None of the street lights in front of me were turning on. And as I kept going, I thought like one turned on and I was going to drive past it, but the glow of light followed me as I was driving. And I looked in my rear view and tried to see if the lights behind me were on, and those had not turned on.
What?
And I was freaking out and I was looking around, and I had been kind of researching this stuff, so I was already like familiar with it. I was like, oh my God, I've been looking too deep. They're coming to get me.
They're coming for you.
I'm about to black out. Like I'm about to like lose time.
Whoa.
And then the next thing I know, the light was gone and the road was dark again.
It was just a warning.
Maybe it was. It was like, don't get too close to this.
Yeah.
And here I am recording a whole podcast episode. I've gotten even closer.
Leading other people to it.
So anyway, I gave it a 4.
Okay. All right.
Because not a scary episode, but
That sounds
conceptually,
like, yeah,
this whole thing freaks me
that's
out.
fair.
I think the look of the duck scared me as a kid. The thought of my mom being robotic and not herself
Sure. Yeah,
would have
we a
stuck
lot
with
of
me.
Fears around that sort of stuff.
I know I had a nightmare as a kid where my mom was a robot, and I woke up very afraid.
Yeah.
And also being abducted by an alien sounds like it sucks ass. So like,
It
I don't
does.
really,
It sounds terrible. I don't
I
ever
don't
want to
wanna
do
do
it.
it.
Don't get me wrong.
I don't want to do it. I gave it a 4.
Okay.
Probably should be higher, but it wasn't a very scary episode. So
Write us what you would give this listener on your scareometer.
right or wrongs. But to close out, I have some final thoughts, which you brought up to me earlier, and I said that we would talk about.
Yes. Yes, this is a question that I had. I'm sure, listener, you noticed it too, because it
Yes.
had something in common between the title card and the credits.
Yes. So there's a specific soundbite over those 2 moments. And we also hear it when Muriel and Courage are both wearing the helmet and they see the duck brother in the kitchen, the red brother. It's an echoing voice saying, number 8,
Number 8? Number 8?
number 8. I couldn't find anything online about what this might mean specifically. Numerology says it represents balance between the physical and spiritual worlds, And when applied to a human, the number 8 represents willpower, determination, and strength to face all of life's challenges.
Huh.
So possibly it's just meant to sort of be applied to courage in general. Or there are more than 3 duck brothers.
That's my theory.
And the red brother
Is number 8.
is number 8.
Yeah.
Potentially even named number 8. Because they don't say each other's names.
Where are the other duck brothers?
Probably arguing on a different planet. Laying eggs.
It's a thing with John Dilworth, just the fowl from outer space.
Yeah.
In his mind, I think most alien life forms are akin to poultry.
I think he's scared of birds. Yeah. He's scared of fowl.
Which I'm scared of birds too.
All I know for certain is that my outline for this Duck Brothers segment is exactly 8 pages.
Number 8.
Number 8?
Number 8.
How about those Duck Brothers, though?
I gotta love them.
I gotta love
Gotta love them.
And how about that Shirley, the gosh dang medium?
Oh, I love her even more.
She's the best. I'm so excited to talk about her. God,
Shirley,
I feel like I know her so well. I feel
medium.
like she's my new best friend.
Me too.
Like we've been hanging out for a couple days.
Yeah, she's great.
My summary of this episode is: when Courage digs up a mysterious box containing Eustace's dead brother's money, Eustace will stop at nothing to obtain the fortune therein, even at the expense of dying by the gigantic hands of a shadow monster.
Grabby guy.
I hate grabby shadows, you know what I mean? I hate when they reach out and they like swipe.
The grabby shadows are the worst kind.
The grabby shadows.
That is
Ugh.
very true.
That's the only lead up I have. I'm just going directly into it.
Here it is. Here we
If you
are.
have any
Guys,
like initial thoughts, you should just give them because
Let's
I'm
see.
about to just
Do I?
jump right in.
Shirley the Medium. This episode, I feel like, has a lot of ties to and plays on the 90s psychic hotline idea,
Oh yeah. Mhm.
where it's late night and it's a 1-800 number that you call and can have all your questions answered.
For sure.
It
for
is
sure.
reminiscent of somebody like a Miss Cleo.
Oh my
If you're
God.
familiar with Miss Cleo and you saw those
Miss Cleo.
infomercials.
I should have looked into her and talked about her for sure.
Well, there is a great documentary. It's probably good that you didn't because, listener, I watched a documentary on her last year or the year before. Fascinating documentary.
I bet.
Tries to be very honest about, what it finds, but the person behind the Miss Cleo character is very, very interesting in and of herself. So,
Right. Well, I want to watch it.
yeah. I just kept getting the vibe of the, call this number and
Yeah.
a psychic will assist you.
If I didn't have to begin this edit immediately, I would totally watch that tonight. I would watch that,
can be
and I would watch the UFO incident.
that can be your weekend activity.
Yeah, that'd be fun,
Yeah.
actually.
I have to be in my little sister's wedding this weekend. I guess I could shout that out so it's permanently on the timeline. Happy wedding, Carrie.
Happy wedding.
So that's what I'll be doing. But you can be watching a documentary. You and the listener.
So Courage has lost his yo-yo.
I know I put it here somewhere.
And I think we all remember what it was like to misplace our yo-yos
All the time.
all the time.
Mine were mostly like I'd get in trouble for having it at school, I remember. So they'd tell me I had to put it in my cubby.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'd forget it at school.
So while he's out in the yard digging up just about everything but a yo-yo, Dilvac,
A Dilvac.
a soccer ball,
Mhm.
an anchor, and a mysterious box.
Who knows what is down there?
Dude, he digs up
We're
so
going to
many
get to
things.
some more of that next time because there's a lot happening under
I know.
the farmland
I love
out
it.
on
I
Eustace
love
and
it.
Muriel's property.
Muriel is being nostalgic. She's reminiscing over Eustace's deceased brother Horst because today is his birthday. Eustace does not miss Horst.
I do miss him.
Blah, blah, blah. I don't.
Such a hard name to say.
Horst.
Horse.
And we'll talk a lot more about Horst when we get to the Forbidden Hat of Gold in season 2, because he's actually pictured in that episode and much more is revealed about his character.
Mhm. As soon as I saw the image in this episode, I was like, oh yeah, that guy.
The Courage Fandom Wiki says he's a skilled hunter and a remarkable explorer. And in the picture that Muriel is holding, he has the carcass of some purple creature draped over his shoulders. So, not just a hunter, but a very big game hunter who amassed a great fortune over time. Several $billion, according to the Fandom Wiki. And whether intentionally or not, by some secret knowledge, luck, curse, or otherwise, the the retrieval of that fortune may now come at a greater cost than perhaps ever before. Although if we know the Bag family, this particular fortune was probably ill-begotten in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
And as usual, Eustace is angry.
Anyway, the bum died without telling me where he hid his box full of money. So happy birthday to nobody.
Which we soon learn is the mysterious box that Courage has dug up in the yard.
Do you think that Horst actually hid it there and was hoping Eustace would eventually find it?
No,
I don't think so either.
I don't think he hoped that Eustace would find it.
Why is it on their property? He just buried it on their property for the vindictive satisfaction of knowing that it would forever be so close to Eustace, but never in his grasp.
Well, it's funny you ask that because TV Tropes calls him a troll,
Mm.
but they're talking more
Okay.
about where he hid the key,
Mm-hmm.
in plain sight, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe he did a similar thing with the box. But another theory I have is the land of nowhere itself, which I'm going to speak more to
Okay.
in a moment.
Okay. I do
Which
find it
I have before, but I will again.
just even saying the word that Horst is a troll in any sense. Who wouldn't want to troll Eustace? Especially if you're a sibling.
right.
So it's like, checks
It's
out.
right there within his grasp, but
Mhm.
he doesn't know it's there.
Yeah, that checks out.
The box itself doesn't seem too heavy, but when Courage carries it inside and drops it at Eustace's feet,
Mhm.
it lands on his foot and it hurts him.
Has to be kind of heavy.
Well, I think it may be because this box carries a great deal of weight for Eustace in particular.
Nice.
But no matter how hard Eustace tries to open the box, he can't without the key.
I'm getting me tools.
And naturally, of course, Courage peers inside the keyhole and sees what nobody else can. Some ominous, lurking evil. And this leads us to the incredible sponsor break
It's so good.
on the Channeling Channel.
I love it that it's the channeling channel. I love that there are ghosts in the title card.
I know.
I love the sponsor, the ad break.
This is one of the things I love most about this show, that the landscape of nowhere seems to have a consciousness and a will of its own.
Mm-hmm.
Just like when they needed a new mattress, there was a convenient mattress ad in the daily newspaper. Now they need to find a lost item that belonged to a deceased relative. The TV shows them a commercial for a medium for hire.
It always knows what they need.
It always knows and always gives them kind of what they need, but not really, which is why I think maybe
What they think they need.
the land could have just given Courage the box of today's horse birthday.
Today's the day.
It's manufacturing this whole, plot, almost like it was written by somebody.
And so you're postulating that the actual will behind everything, the writer of the destiny,
possible.
is nowhere itself.
Maybe the whole thing is a simulation. Who knows?
Who knows?
But yes, the Channeling Channel. Incredible. I want to watch it.
Me too.
But it feels like they weren't watching the Channeling Channel at all. The TV wasn't even on.
Mm-hmm.
And it just popped up on the screen without warning, like how our technology today is always listening and showing us, advertisements for things we merely discussed with somebody, but didn't actually search for or ask for.
The Channeling Channel will return after a word from our sponsor. Are you trying to contact the dead? Are you trying to reach the unreachable?
Blah, blah, blah.
Surely the medium can put you in touch with the hereafter, so you all can live and die happily ever after.
And die.
And die.
Happily ever after. And I also love the divide between Eustace's motives and Muriel's. She's so pleasantly unaware of what's going on, as usual. She just wants Eustace to forgive Horst so he can be happy.
Mm-hmm.
So, in her mind, hiring Shirley the medium will only help him speak with Horst to lay their troubles to rest.
Our differences are settled. He's dead and I ain't.
But of course, he finally agrees to the plan so he can ask Horst for the key to the box of money.
That he cannot get into.
Can't do
No
it.
matter how hard he tries.
Oh, I just know something bad is going to happen, or my name is Archibald. And it's not.
When it comes to mediums, psychics, fortune tellers, clairvoyants, etc., most people would expect them to be able to do a few specific things. To be able to see the future, to be able to speak with the dead, and to be able to find lost things. If you Google mediums and lost objects right now, you will likely find a ton of psychics for hire in your area who
Which we have both
specialize
done this week.
in finding lost items. I did this, last night.
Mm-hmm.
And in many true crime scenarios, psychics have involved themselves in a number of missing persons cases.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they've even found success. Hell, you sent me an article on how the British government used psychics to try to find Osama bin Laden in the 2000s.
And that's not the only instance of military use of unexplainable phenomena
True.
to their advantage. However, they're able to use it or access
A little bit of crossover between these episodes here.
it. Little bit.
Little bit. There's more later. But there's one person I want to highlight other than, Cleo, who I first heard about in the Lore podcast episode, Bygone.
Mm-hmm.
Her name was Livia La Ferreira. She lived in Vermont, and she'd had psychic abilities since she was a teenager, reading tea leaves at parties and warning her friends when a boy was going to ask them out. Ew. But she had a bona fide career as a clairvoyant because Vermont licensed psychics at the time. So she paid annual fees, paid money to be able to tell fortunes legally.
Wow.
Anytime she was asked about a lost item, animal, or person, Livia would get what she called strong impressions and knew exactly where to look. She could locate anything from lost valuables to submerged vehicles to missing children.
Whoa.
And from what I can tell, she had a damn near 100% success rate. At least if she did get something wrong, it wasn't significant enough to recount or even remember.
Her victories were impressive enough to eclipse her.
Yeah. And the only source I could find on her online was a firsthand account of someone who had, hired her multiple times for different things. And actually, she predicted the writer's future of what they would do for a living.
Wow.
From going into the military to being surrounded by books and writing for a living. But that's the thing about predicting the future is it more persuasive
Exactly.
than not?
That was going to be my question.
Who knows? But hey, she wasn't wrong.
She wasn't wrong.
Who's to say?
Not Miss Cleo.
Not Miss Cleo. But Shirley the medium. Shirley Wood.
Shirley.
You can call her Shirley.
Her name's Shirley.
And I love that Shirley gets to show off all of these skills, even if she is depicted as a pretty stereotypical Romani gypsy type.
Yeah. But again, that is a tie back to Miss Cleo and how she used that stereotype.
Yeah.
So.
And this is the first of a few episodes that features Shirley the medium. Once again, to quote the appearance and personality sections of Shirley's page on the Courage Fandom Wiki, I will send to you to read for all of us.
Shirley is a small green chihuahua with purple eyelids, long eyelashes tipped with small gold balls, a purple nose, and black paws. She has heterochromia. Her right eye has an orange iris, and the left one has green and orange coloring. She wears a large golden earring on her right ear. Her attire consists of a green dress covered by a purple cape and a blue hood. So, you've probably seen her picture if you follow us on social media this week.
Mm-hmm.
Shirley is a mystical fortune teller whose primary pastime is casting curses on those who defy morality. She despises the greedy, wrathful, and inhospitable, often subjecting them to spells that only repair when their sins are reversed. Ironically, she is very fond of money, charging heavy fees on clients and selling herself on TV. This is probably because she's actually poor, as shown in The Curse of Shirley, while living on the outskirts of nowhere in her gypsy wagon. It may also be out of a desire to punish Eustace, whom she charges the most and whose actions annoy her the most.
I think we can all agree with Shirley on that point.
We can agree with Shirley on this one. And we can, understand that she is picking and choosing which clients she exploits.
Yes.
From a financial standpoint, which
Absolutely.
I get it.
I would too.
Very Robin Hood of her.
Except she keeps the money.
But she takes it from somebody that doesn't deserve it.
She's voiced by Mary Testa, who's been acting since the 70s. She's appeared in a number of films and TV shows over the decades, including 2 episodes in season 1 of The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
Yeah.
She plays Trina Romanoff.
Oh, I love it so much.
When Shirley arrives at the Bag Farm that night, she warns them.
One thing, if you contact the dead for personal gain, there will be tragic consequences.
Just tell my dead brother and shut up.
Which begins the funniest bit of the whole episode.
I know, this is the funniest thing in the world.
Join hands.
They join hands around the table, And, well, Shirley appears to fall asleep at first. This is such a common trope during seance sequences.
Yeah, in almost everything that I can think of with a
Almost
seance.
Always a moment where it seems like the medium falls
The
asleep.
new Haunted Mansion movie.
Yeah, didn't that happen there?
Mm-hmm.
My God, it's just been used over and over. And usually someone will make a joke about it, lowering everyone's expectations just a beat before some supernatural occurrence.
Yes.
But like you're saying, the hilarious part here is that the whole thing plays like she's literally calling them on the phone.
Yes.
So when Shirley dials for Horst, it's like she's dialing him on speakerphone for everyone to hear.
The dial tones with her open mouth at the table just while the dial tones come out of her throat. It's like, I laughed out loud.
Me too.
I don't
This
always
one's
laugh
really
out
funny.
loud at Courage episodes, but that bit, I laughed out loud.
And when he doesn't answer, she says, like a telephone operator.
The party is not answering.
He never took my calls.
And in a moment,
Yep.
Eustace tells Muriel to hang up because she's tying up the line. Like, it's just genius. It's all so funny.
Very, very smart. Very funny.
So good.
And honestly, it was such a childlike way of kind of depicting that sort of an action. But kids today probably wouldn't even get it.
Well, you can still hear that on a cell phone when
You
you
can,
dial, but
Kids aren't dialing that many numbers these days. Not like we were.
I guess they're mostly texting on their
Exactly.
texting
There are
devices.
so
They're
many
not
other
making phone
options.
calls. No human connection.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah, it just made me laugh because I was like, as a kid, that was really funny to me too. But kids today don't have that same connection to it that we did. Not that it's not accessible.
They definitely
It's
wouldn't
just
understand tying
not
up
the
the
same.
line.
Right.
That joke would go whew,
Mhm.
right over their head.
I see.
But Courage and Muriel have
I
much more
see.
success.
I see a yo-yo. Yes. I see a yo-yo. It is under the sofa.
She sees Courage's yo-yo and her crystal ball. And when he says yes, that's when I laughed out loud. That was one of the funniest things I've ever heard. And I love how he goes and he plays with it for a second and he puts
Yep.
it right back.
It was back under the sofa. Yep.
The beats in this episode are timed so perfectly.
It is really good.
God, they're so funny.
I was very impressed. Because kids do that too. They're like, oh my God, I've been looking everywhere for this. They put it back
Awesome.
where they
Now I
found
won't
it.
forget. Put it right back.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Well, now I found it, so I don't care anymore. Yeah.
Try my brother again.
And when Shirley tries for Horst again,
Hello? Hello?
Muriel's Aunt Gertrude answers. Muriel has apparently been trying to perfect a raspberry jam recipe because Aunt Gertrude just out of nowhere says that she should use vinegar. And Muriel knows exactly what she's talking about.
Vinegar in raspberry jam.
According to a recipe blog called Pomona's Universal Pectin, we should all be using balsamic vinegar in our delicious jams and jellies.
Well, hey,
To quote them,
Riley.
the tartness of the vinegar subtly balances the flavor of the jam, bringing out the complexities of the fruit. Balsamic vinegar jams are not a sour or overly acidic finished product, simply a well-rounded, delicious batch of jam.
Wow.
And I want to try some.
I wish I could.
Courage doesn't, but I want to.
Can't have any of that right now. Nothing preserved. No vinegar.
I have 3 jars of preserves right now.
Hmm.
And it's unclear who voiced Aunt Gertrude, but I'm going to go ahead and say probably Thea White.
I would bet so.
But Horst is for sure voiced by Peter Fernandez, who pretty sure
Yeah, we talked about him.
talked about him
Yeah, we
before.
talked about him in the Shadow of Courage episode because I think, correct me if I'm wrong, listener, but I think he voices Moneybags.
Mr. Moneybags.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Moneypants. No, I'm Moneypants. He's Moneypants.
You're Moneypants. Yeah, you got to
Right.
get that right.
Yeah, if this Mardi Gras commercial would ever pay me. I just worked last week.
Then you'll be Moneypants again.
So, speaking of,
Isn't this wonderful?
Shirley finally gets Horst on the line, who warns Eustace to bury the box because there's nothing in there for him.
There's nothing in there for you.
Give me the key.
Okay.
Okay.
But at Eustace's insistence, Horst tells him to search the lining of his hat,
Yeah.
where he then finds the key.
Which, if ultimate troll move. I mean, agree with TV tropes there.
Right where he would never look.
Mm-hmm.
The ironic thing here is that Eustace could have just asked Shirley to find the lost key.
Also meant to be played for a joke, I think.
So this episode, as we keep saying, has so many funny moments. I do think my favorite is Shirley seeing the yo-yo and the crystal ball, but Courage calling Eustace from the phone booth.
Hello. Don't open the
That also made me laugh.
And Muriel immediately experimenting with adding vinegar to her jam is just so funny.
'Cause she's got to do it right now.
It's been bothering her so much.
Yeah, of course, this has been haunting her. This is the kind of thing that haunts Muriel, not the craziness in the world that they experience on a daily basis.
Getting her recipe right.
Not any of the horrors that
and making sure
it's just the recipe.
Making sure the clothes are folded before later.
That also made me laugh.
The things that she's worried about.
Muriel has she has things that are important to her too. They're just very stereotypically domestic.
Fix the creak in the rocking chair.
The fact that Courage has to call them on a payphone to get them to understand him because he can't talk to them apparently. So, but when he calls on a phone, they can understand him.
Don't open the box.
Don't open the box.
This is not good.
And we need all this humor because things are about to get pretty dark. Eustace does open the box, which radiates that familiar green glow that we now associate with supernatural evil in Nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
Two giant shadowy hands reach out from the box, real grabby.
Very.
Grabby shadows.
Very grabby.
Implying that some enormous dark entity has been imprisoned by this box. Mm-hmm. But more on that in a bit.
Hey! What are you doing in my box? With my money?
When the hands take hold of both Eustace and Muriel and attempt to drag them into the box, Courage is forced to use the rope from the clothesline. And like I said, making sure to fold them because he knows how concerned Muriel would be.
Yes, he knows that she's either going to ask or at least that she would care. So he takes time to take the clothes off the line and fold them and also hold a dress up to himself.
I know. I was going to say.
That's just a pondering. Oh, that's pretty.
Another humorous example of challenging the gender norms. He goes, oh, look, a dress, which could be a blouse, but to him is a dress.
Right.
It's so long.
He's a small dog.
But that's my question is, whose is this?
Great question.
Who does this belong to?
I guess it is Muriel's blouse.
It's so small, though.
Yeah, it is.
Good questions.
Questions we may never have the answer to.
Gonna keep me up at night.
At least you know to put vinegar in your jams and jellies.
Oh, from now on. Forever and ever. So Courage attaches this rope to the bags and then secures the rest of it around the farmhouse. The whole thing. Which proceeds to be crushed by the strength of this monster. I think in reality, the bags would, lose limbs before the house was destroyed.
Yeah.
But Dilly really loved destroying this farmhouse.
Mm-hmm.
Happens so many times.
Over and over.
But having bought them some time, Courage goes to Shirley's studio where she films her commercials.
The stupid one. He opened the box, yes?
And he rushes her back to the farmhouse where she gives Eustace the old I told you so treatment, proving that she did in fact predict the future.
She did.
And what do you know? It's a pretty easy fix. She just shuts the box, which then dispenses a single dollar bill that she collects as her fee.
I knew there was money in that box.
The only problem is, this dollar reaffirms Eustace's greed, and he opens the box once more, only to be sucked inside, imprisoned by his own stupidity.
His greed, really.
The stupid one. He opened the box.
He opened the box. And what's in the box?
That's literally,
Grabby shadows.
Literally my next point. That's so funny. I was about to go, Kaylin, do you have any thoughts or things or anything you want to talk about before I get to the question of what this thing is? Or should we just jump right in? And you went ahead and did it.
We got to know. What's in the box? What's in the box?
Oh, okay. Hold on. Let me set it up.
What's in the box?
I had a great punchline. Great punchline. Ready?
Okay.
The thing is, the stupid one was right the whole time.
Look at all this money.
The box is full of money.
Yeah.
The inside of the box is a seemingly infinite realm, something known as hammer space, with a seemingly infinite supply of cash.
Scrooge McDuck style.
Scrooge McDuck
Just
style.
Piles and piles.
And ending like an episode of The Twilight Zone or perhaps A Tale from the Crypt, Eustace now has more money than he could ever spend, with nowhere to spend it.
Dun, dun, dun.
Pun intended. Nowhere to spend it.
Aha.
But Eustace appears to be alone with his fortune. So, in regards to the shadowy monster that almost squeezed all the juice out of the bags, we have to ask ourselves one question.
What's in the box?
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 The creature in this box is known on the Courage fandom wiki as the box demon. And in the Courage universe, that descriptor may suffice. But I think this box and its demon deserves a closer look. And this all differs greatly from haunted or cursed objects, which we will have ample opportunity to discuss in many future episodes, I'm sure. And I think we have a little bit here and there.
We have.
Especially with the Twisted Claw and all that fun stuff.
These little bits of lore come up more often than you would think.
Quite a bit, yeah.
Again, it's part of the reason why That's Pretty Dark as a show exists, because
exactly
we saw it over and over and over again.
I love
and
it.
We're finally asking why.
I love it so much. I'm so glad we're doing this.
Somebody had to.
To me, this concept is a conglomeration of a few different types of folklore and mythology, much like we discovered in our dark music episode from Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Yes.
It's known that Horst was a world traveler and someone who would be willing to take on dangerous creatures for the love of the hunt. So it stands to reason that he would also take on a different sort of dangerous being for the love of the treasure hunt.
Yeah.
Therefore, I think the box demon would be more aptly named the Treasure Guardian.
Mm-hmm.
Tales of treasure guardians, a recurring motif in folklore, have been told around the world for thousands of years.
Mm-hmm.
One of the most ominous to me is often attributed to pirates.
Yes.
And this is simply the act of murdering someone and burying their body with the treasure so that their ghost can guard it. Although this is considered more of a subtype, and it's referred to as a treasure ghost.
And we see it, over and over again, even in the Pirates of the Caribbean.
Goonies comes to mind.
Goonies.
Every time there's treasure, there's a skeleton.
Always.
The next most frightening and common is demons, or the devil himself. I found an excerpt from a work by a French Benedictine monk named Antoine Augustin Calmet, perhaps, who lived from 1672 to 1757. This work is titled The Phantom World, or The Philosophy of Spirits, Apparitions, etc.
I like it.
Just this excerpt alone, at a glance, tells of 15 or 16 very real-life accounts in which the devil or demons stood guard over a hidden treasure, or revealed the treasure in some way as to entice men to their own dooms.
They just are essentially, rather than guarding the treasure, they're using it for their own purposes.
They're using it as a lure. Yeah.
Okay.
And even those who lived and were actually given the golden treasure later discovered their bags full of nothing more than like copper pieces, tree leaves, pieces of broken clay from pots, lumps of coal, etc.
As if they've hallucinated the whole thing.
Hallucinated or struck a deal to receive the gold, the treasure.
And been given something else.
And then later realized they'd really just given their souls in exchange for nothing. So it's all deception, right? The father of lies.
Yes.
And speaking of such threatening trickster nature, the next most common to us is leprechauns.
Yeah.
What do we all associate with leprechauns? Guarding pots of gold at the end of the rainbow.
Yep.
Which is a rather hilarious example of an impossible task, if you ask me. Yeah, you can have the gold. Sure, just follow the rainbow. Find the end of the rainbow, and there it is.
And it's all yours. Because you can't do it.
Because you can't do it. And it's also said that if you capture a leprechaun, they'll be forced to give you gold in exchange for their release. However, as we've discussed, specifically in our Jake and the Leprechaun episode,
Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Leprechauns and other fae are not something you want to mess around with.
No.
And these other fae include gnomes, which sometimes stand guard over buried treasure, and another entity that we discussed in that episode, Spriggans.
Oh, I remember that. Now that you're saying it.
Which are Cornish guardians of treasure buried in abandoned places, ruins, cairns, barrows, graveyards. But Spriggan are said to have immense strength and can grow to an enormous size.
The size of the grabby shadows, perhaps?
Possibly, because they are the ghosts of dead giants.
Wow.
And speaking of enormous beings, we can't forget to mention everyone's favorite treasure guardian for all time, dragons. I think I'm just going to leave that one there. Speaks for itself, I think.
There's a lot that could be said.
Yeah. I think we'll
say
probably
it someday.
We'll probably discuss dragons eventually. I don't want to.
Yeah, we won't steal the thunder.
Sure. But the last one I have to discuss is one that you've told us about in the dark music. I'm pretty sure we've discussed a couple times now. Genies.
Yes.
Or Jinn.
Jinn.
When we think of supernatural entities trapped inside of small containers, most of us in the Western world will think of genies.
We're going to be singing Christina Aguilera almost immediately.
Yes. Thanks in large part to Christina Aguilera and Disney's Aladdin, based on the tale of Aladdin's wonderful lamp, which was added to the Arabian Nights collection of stories when they were translated for European audiences in the 18th century. They were so popular that the French translator, Antoine Galland, wanted to add more stories, which he then took from a Syrian storyteller named Anton Youssef Hanadiab.
Okay.
Aladdin's story immortalized the connection between genies and objects, lamps, rings, etc. But before that, jinn were free-willing entities that coexisted with nature and wielded great power. Leave it to man to greedily trap lightning in a bottle, a genie in a bottle, for the purpose of wielding that genie's power and forcing it to do his bidding, which is where we get the whole granting wishes concept in the first place.
And we're noticing the theme of greed. Just all throughout.
And the first legend that depicts this is the Arabian Nights tale about the city of brass lost in the Sahara, where a jinn was supposedly imprisoned in a brass vessel by King Solomon.
Wow.
Who used a ring given to him by God himself. And this brass vessel is later discovered by a fisherman in another tale in the Arabian Nights.
Okay.
The fisherman opens the vessel, releasing the genie Asmodeus, who has been trapped for 400 years. And being angry with the race of men for trapping him, Asmodeus has been plotting this whole time what he would do for and to the human who eventually released him. For those of you thinking about 3 wishes, that was just one of the scenarios he'd considered. What he winds up deciding to do is to let the fisherman choose how he would like to be murdered.
Oh.
That's his reward.
That's pretty dark.
Of course, in Aladdin's tale, the genie does his bidding and makes him rich and powerful, and because everyone wants to be rich and powerful, this became the most popular genie story in modern Western pop culture. But in regard to treasure specifically, TV Trope says, if they were bound to their prison, jinn were slaves to their owners but did not have any reality warping powers per se. After all, the wish was more like a command, and the jinn simply used their incredible powers to do their master's bidding. If their master wished for a castle, they would build one, and if they wanted money, the jinn pulled it out of their own coffers. And then it says, paraphrasing, the human mind is unable to comprehend how much money a genie has. In other words, from a human perspective at least, genies have a seemingly infinite supply of cash.
Incredible cosmic powers. Tiny living space.
So what's in the box? If you ask me, it's a cross between a demon, a Spriggan, and a genie.
I would buy it.
Somewhere in there.
And you ain't never had a friend like them. Or an enemy. In
I
Princess's case.
do not want to make enemies with a jinn. I've seen the Supernatural episode. That sounds terrifying.
Yeah.
And speaking of great power, both of tonight's episodes end with Courage wielding some secret power over Eustace. First, the remote for the mind control helmet, and then the key that will release Eustace from the box.
Because we've reached a point where the viewer, especially if they are young children, as we were, is craving that
justice,
power. Yeah, that power
the
dynamic.
Shift in the power
to be
dynamic.
Shifted.
Yeah, yeah, and I have to say, it's nice to see our favorite pink dog enjoying some well-deserved peace and quiet with his favorite human. I love it.
Agreed.
It's the best. And you were emphasizing the greed of these stories. I was looking for a connection between these 2 episodes, since they were written by the same person. And they were also coupled together. And I think maybe I found it. There's a moral to the Shirley the Medium episode, which the title character herself delivers. If you contact the dead for personal gain, there will be tragic consequences.
This is bigger than you and me, and bigger than your money.
Right.
Bigger than your greed.
But more to the point, there's a strong emphasis on the ignorance of Eustace's greed.
Or the ignorance that he adopts because of it.
Yeah, because of his
greed. He stops short there. That's all he needs to know. There's money, I'm in. That's for me.
That's for me. He will stop at nothing to get this money, even putting himself and others in danger in his quest to get rich quick. This calls to mind another famous moral found in Aesop's fables. the goose that laid the golden eggs. To quote Wikipedia, one last time. The tale has given rise to the idiom, killing the goose that lays the golden eggs, which refers to the short-sighted destruction of a valuable resource, or to the unprofitable action motivated by greed.
Mm-hmm.
And who else lays golden eggs? Those darn Duck brothers.
They sure do. They sure do.
So I think perhaps that's how these two episodes
Bravo!
are conjoined.
I'm clapping because that's a good tie-in. Obviously, if you were a millennial, or even a generation back, actually, maybe even Gen X as well, you are reminded of Veruca Salt and her time in Willy Wonka's chocolate factory.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that's a direct Aesop fable tie and something that we're going to have to explore deeper whenever we do visit the chocolate factory ourselves.
Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait.
I'm rich, I'm rich.
As far as the idea of greed goes, we are all very familiar with the way that it kind of pilots Eustace's life.
Mm-hmm.
But it is nice and haunting to get that final moment where he does sit in his riches, in his treasures. And as you said, he realizes, where am I going to spend it?
Yeah.
It just echoes. It hangs there. It's very powerful, especially for like a young child mind, because it's such a poignant way of saying, you know, the age-old adage, the biblical adage, if you will, money, the love of money, is the root of all evil. And it's very astute commentary on the worth, if you will, of money and how money as a concept can be so isolating.
Oh, yeah.
Whether you have it or you
yeah.
don't.
Mm-hmm.
But particularly when you want it so bad that it's all you can think about.
Especially how it makes people so cutthroat and like desperate to get the money at all costs.
Yep.
Like
it just brings out a lot of traits in people that are not ideal.
Yeah, even when you get what you've been trying to obtain this whole time, you know, you've climbed the ladder, you've stepped on all the heads, you've possibly even murdered in the name of greed to get what you want.
You do what you have to do.
And then once you have it, you look around, you go, ha, I'm here, look how great I am. And there's no one there to even like notice.
No one even
Everyone's
sees you
gone.
anymore.
Yeah, no one even wants to look at you anymore, if they're even still alive. Because he was literally putting them in danger to get this money. I think it speaks very deeply.
And that's the other thing too, the fact that he opens the box again knowing what's coming for him.
Knowing what could happen.
Still the chance that he could get the money. That tells you everything.
He just doesn't care. Yeah.
It's willful ignorance, you know.
He's like an addict.
He is like an addict.
He knows what's going to happen, but he just does it anyway. Because he is entirely incapable of stopping himself.
Consumed by greed.
But yeah, that's all I got, aside from the scareometer.
Scareometer time. Scareometer.
Woohoo!
You can go first this time.
Oddly enough, I gave this like an 8 or a 9.
Whoa.
Only.
Whoa.
It's not like a scary episode necessarily. It is and it isn't. Mostly because I want to collect certain magical things, objects, items from folklore. And the thought of bringing... Yeah, something like that, like a haunted object into my home that has some dark energy like attached to it.
Yeah, that is scary.
Genuinely freaks me out. And like
me too. It's spooky.
More so the idea of mishandling it or like accidentally opening something like this and unleashing a malevolent entity or force. That makes me not be able to sleep.
It's one of the reasons both you and I have always been afraid of Ouija boards.
Yeah, exactly. So that is why it's very high for me, because I probably won't ever experience an abduction scenario, but there's a future, a reality where I do collect certain items and I do bring them into my home.
Unawares.
And have no idea what's coming.
Yeah, okay. That checks out. We've got plenty more cursed object. You know, we've already gone down that road a little bit. And we have plenty more to talk about. So this probably won't be the last time that phobia of yours is poked and prodded.
I'm so fascinated by it. I don't know that I would be able to like handle it if something went wrong.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Who among us could?
What about you? What'd you give it?
I hesitated. And I ended up giving it a 4.5 to 5.
Okay.
We typically don't do the half points, but that last line and the echoing presence that it had really bumped it up a notch for me because it is very accessible for a kid. the episode doesn't necessarily scare me. The idea of a cursed object is pretty scary. But again, I know I'm not the type of person to be motivated by greed or money.
Right.
Really,
Right.
ever. Only to the point of survival, not
Yeah.
in my life.
That's the other side of the
So
coin.
I can comfortably distance myself from Eustace and the consequences of Eustace's actions. Those don't scare me because
I would never behave that way.
not to toot my own horn or anything. I've got my own hang-ups.
Yeah.
But greed isn't really one of them. So
Knowing something could happen, I would never do it again.
right.
You know?
Yes, exactly. And not only that, but we could learn a lesson. You know, the first time the grabby shadows come out of that box, I'm going to be putting it back where it came
The
from.
grabby shadow.
That's
I'm closing the box and I'm burying it. I'm
Yep.
burying it.
they can stay wherever they were before. They don't need to be here with me. So
They can go grab
you know.
themselves.
was it scary to me? No. Is it
Yeah.
haunting as a concept? I think so. So that's where the points come from. Or the,
Probably because it has a
the
very
ranking
similar
on my
like
end.
echo to like All Dogs
Yes.
for you. That same
Kind of,
hollow
yeah.
like
the hollow emptiness
oh,
of
shit.
existence or the lack thereof. You know,
Right.
what if that, like, suddenly the road just ran out? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That echo is scary to me
There's
in all
no
its
turning
forms.
back.
There's no turning back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I get it. I get
The
it.
finality is that's something, a common theme that I am frightened by.
Ooh, finality is so scary.
Speaking of finality,
I don't like it.
this is the end of the
We're
episode.
we just reached the finale of this episode.
And it's
That's
scary
right.
for us because we never know how to get there.
Never know how to end it, ever. But I think
We
we do
have
have some
arrived.
patrons that we could thank, and that might help us get to the end.
We do. Thank you so much to our new patrons for this go around this last couple weeks. We have our good friend, Marshall M.
Yeah.
Thank you, Marshall.
What's up, Marshall? Thank you. And Brooke R.
Thank you, Brooke.
Thanks to both of you.
Yeah, we appreciate you
We really do.
very
We really
much.
do.
You make it possible to keep coming to the table and making content like this, and your support is sort of mind-blowing when we step back and look at it.
Mhm.
The fact that anybody would want to, give us their hard-earned dollars is
Yeah.
just wild.
They're haunted boxes of money.
Haunted by, if you
The
have a
fact
haunted
that
box
you'd
of
want to
money,
give us that.
the fact that you'd give that up for us,
I'll
that you
take it. I
bury it
won't
on our
open it.
property
I won't open it. I just
and
want to.
hide
I just
the
want to have it.
key in our home.
Yeah, for sure.
No,
for sure.
but we are so appreciative, not only to our new patrons, but to all of you guys who, support us, stick around through it all, and allow us to create the content that we love, and to, have these conversations and explore these themes that bring us so much joy and light into life that both of our lives, honestly, desperately need it. So
And if you want to open up your magical coffers and give us, $5 a month or whatever you feel like giving, and say thanks and help us keep the batteries in our flashlight to keep exploring these, catacombs and cairns and barrows and graveyards and stuff, looking for that treasure.
what'd you say?
Exploring the hammer space. Yeah,
Hammer space.
the hammer space, which is a concept or a term I just learned last night.
And now you've taught it to us. So
And now I'm going to keep using it. So hammer space. It's hammer time to give us $5 a month on our Patreon. Patreon.com/TPD podcast. It would be so appreciated and would just really help us keep going.
And even if not, or in addition to, you can always follow us on our socials. That's Pretty Dark Podcast
Yeah.
on Instagram. That's Pretty Dark on TikTok. We're opening up some new channels to get into y'all's ears wherever they may be. We know
Yeah,
that
we're
a lot of you
exploring
listen
the whole
on
YouTube
streaming
thing.
services, but yeah, YouTube is big.
Yeah.
Even if not video, a lot of people listen to their audio on YouTube and YouTube Music, so we're looking
Yeah.
into getting our episodes up there.
Bye-bye, Google Podcasts.
Bye Google Podcast.
If you do Google Podcasts, it's going to end soon. So,
Yeah. Find a new home for your pretty darkness, because we're in a lot of other places.
they're going to move it all to YouTube. So look into that. It's because we want to keep you around
We do.
forever. Forever and ever.
Locked
Forever.
in a box with the grabby shadow.
God, I'm going to go grab those shadows.
Just as long as they don't grab you.
As long as they don't grab back. Yeah.
I think that is that everything. Do we get there?
I think that's about it. Email us at that'sprettyddarkpodcast@gmail.com. And besides that, we'll catch you next time.
We're probably gonna have some more courage for your.
Oh yeah. Well, if you're super interested in cursed treasures,
Oh yeah. Stick
that was
around.
almost an avenue I went down, but I didn't because we're going to next time.
A big courage episode is on the horizon for us.
Like
listener.
probably the biggest.
Maybe the biggest one.
Probably the biggest one.
Maybe the biggest one.
It's gonna get real musical.
We can't wait to get into it with all of you.
All right, guys. Until next time.
Bye, guys.
Sweet dreams.
Thanks for listening to That's Pretty Dark, written and produced by Christian Baxter Mott and Kaylin Andrews.
Our music is composed by Jonathan Simmons, and our art is provided by Paige Garland at Power Girl Illustration.
Join the collective nostalgia and follow us on Facebook and Instagram at That's Pretty Dark Podcast.
Share your experiences and let us know what shows, films, or villains still haunt you from childhood at that'sprettydarkpodcast@gmail.com. Remember, you're never really alone.
So until next time, sweet dreams, everyone.